Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today we have a special guest. She is going to be talking to us about what's in a dream. And so we're going to be talking about dream interpretation. I know many of you out there probably are sensitive to dreams, and I think that you're going to find today's episode pretty interesting. Our guest is Cathy Fisher. Her name is spelled with a C, Cathy with a C, and Fisher, like the fish, Fisher, Cathy Fisher. She is a lifelong student and sometimes teacher of the knowledge from spirit. She's always had a gift for seeing into dreams and dream interpretation, and she does offer dream interpretations working with you. And she also has helped people figure out their own symbologies and things in dreams. She had taken a class on dream interpretation, and that kind of furthered her understanding, but it's actually a natural gift for her. And so I'd like to welcome Cathy Fisher.
Thank you, Tracy.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for joining me today. So, talk about dreams in general. How do you think of the dream state as it is? When you think of someone being in a dream state, how would you describe that?
You know, it feels a little differently for different people, but basically you're asleep and you have this active dialogue going on in your brain. And for some people, it comes out almost like watching a TV show. For some people, they are what I call first person. They're actually seeing through their own eyes in the dream. Sometimes they're third person and they're watching themselves interact with their environment or other people in dreams. But basically speaking, I think we've all experienced a dream, and I don't have a great definition for one, but it is watching things happen through the mind's eye and through your soul as you sleep.
Yeah, I like that. I often have thought that maybe the left brain is resting. Our brain is a physical part of our body and so is needing rest, but our soul or our perception, our mind is not needing to rest because it's eternal. So we do sort of it can be a vision quest like you were describing earlier, where we're seeing imagery or participating or observing, or it could also be connecting with our loved ones, because when we're awake, maybe our left brain wants to begin to argue and say, oh, I just wish that's happening or whatever. And sometimes I think we're going to school when we're dreaming, sort of downloading information to help us cope with certain things, or maybe
Absolutely.
helping other people. You
Yes,
think so too?
absolutely. And, you know, sometimes it's sort of like coded. It's like a puzzle or a pun, and we don't often get it right away. But I
Yes.
love the way that you put it because, you know, our left brains get tired, and yet we rely on them so heavily that it's kind of a time when the kind thing happens and our bodies force that left brain to just be still. And then we get these images or these symbols that come up to help us deal better with life, to offer us alternative perspectives on how to proceed and have a better life. But we
Yeah.
have to be open to hearing those messages. And sometimes it helps if we better understand the messages that we are getting. And sometimes that's tricky.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I find it similar to a trance state or an altered state where someone goes into a deep meditation to find answers. Also, for you mediums out there and channelers out there, connecting with that other realm, that state of mind that allows us to freely receive information. So, how would someone know that a dream is significant? Like, how do you define that?
Well, that's a great question. And I have a few different perspectives on that, which I think provide a more full answer to your question. So just so you know, that's going to come in bits and pieces. Some people just know. I just knew this was meaningful. I knew this was speaking to me. I remembered it when I woke up, or perhaps I knew something had happened. I felt a certain way. But your question brings up something that I want to address first in getting there. And not every dream is significant. And I think sometimes we try too hard to overthink it. Some dreams are just data dumps. They are just your mind getting rid of the stuff that might have been in your day or in your week. And your mind is sorting through events or a conversation you had or something you picked up on the TV. And these things may not mean anything other than your brain just sorting things out.
Yeah, sort of processing.
Yes. And so you don't want to analyze, you want to interpret.
Oh, that's a very lovely distinction, because using analysis uses our left brain and
Right.
tries to fit things into predetermined templates, and the other allows us to free associate and create and understand things. I was thinking just a second ago, you were talking about how, you might not need to take something literally in a dream. And I know, and because you're also a medium, that when we interpret messages from spirit, that words are just the language of the physical realm. They're what we have to condense something down to in order to convey the totality of the message. And then that next tier underneath that supports the level of words is symbols. And that's the language of dreams on occasion, and sometimes the language of spirit, or showing us something that we associate so that we can understand the deeper thing. And then deeper than that is that level of the feelings and the emotions and the actual complete story, the interpretation of that.
Yes, exactly. And that's part of what I want to talk about today, is how to get to the point where you're on the path to being able to understand those things for yourself.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. Let me start with this. First of all, we've already said not every dream is significant. Even if it's something going on in your life at that moment, it still may not be significant. There is a particular time in the night when your dreams tend to be more significant. And the easiest way to forget all the, is it a REM sleep? What is it?
Mm-hmm.
The simplest way to say it is this. If you have a dream right before waking up, like right before you wake up in the morning, and when you awaken, you remember it, chances are really good that may be a significant dream. That is the timing of when you've been in a deep sleep. Your brain has already done all those crazy little data dumps of this, that, and the other thing. And now your mind is free to have these symbols come through. So that is often the best time. Now, but let me also say that certain things can get in the way of that being accurate for you, even though it is your dream. For example, if you eat something spicy, you might have odd dreams, or for some people, chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
Certain medications are that way. If your sleep has been an erratic pattern, that can disrupt your ability to have a significant dream. Taking certain medications can do that. Drinking alcohol, sometimes even sleeping with the TV or with radio on. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to sleep with the TV on, and I wake up in this really strange dream with something going on. And as I come into full consciousness, I realize I'm sort of dreaming in part what was going on at the TV at the same time.
Yes, yes, yes. Some people don't realize that in a way TV can be looked at as sort of a guided meditation. So be careful what you watch.
Yes, yes. Well, and another thing, if you are ill, you are likely to have really odd dreams, especially if you have a fever. You're going to have some pretty weird dreams at times, and they may not mean anything at all. And so you just have to cut yourself some slack and not have this huge expectation that everything is going to be meaningful, everything is going to be a big spiritual revelation. It's not, but your dreams are there to help you.
Yes, some people have created books on dream interpretation, but what I've heard, and I'd be curious about your opinion on this, is that those are that individual's interpretation of symbols and they are not broadly applicable, whereas maybe numerology and astrology is more pertinent in terms of a science or an accuracy of sort of a comprehensive application that can be used without, obviously it describes individual differences,
Yes,
but dreams are so personal, so very personal.
They are. Now, I will say that there are certain themes or certain archetypes that generally tend to hold true, but they're not always true for everybody and not true for everybody 100% of the time. So I don't usually recommend a specific book, not even an internet search, because there's a lot of crap out there, to be honest with you.
Right.
But it's not a terrible place to start if you want ideas of, oh, what might this mean? But we will talk about that some today. I do recommend a class if you can find a teacher who's good, but always trust your instinct. If somebody says something, including myself, that just doesn't sit right with you and your gut just says, go with that. Go with that feeling. It's got to be what it means for you. Mm-hmm. And so the whole dream interpretation process, honestly, is more about what you feel while you are having the dream than it is about analyzing all the symbols in it. Yes, there's some place to interpret what those symbols might mean, and there are some things that are generically true. But as you said, it's not always the case. Mm-hmm. Say, for example, a vehicle is how you get places. If you think metaphysically, a vehicle is how you get from place to place. So it is talking, when you dream of a vehicle, generally it's about how you go from place to place. That might be about your spiritual path. It might be about your speed of life. It might be about your progress in doing things. But all those are about path, and all those are about how you're getting there. So to overgeneralize, if you have something that's like a sporty car and it's really revving and going, generally you think, well, that's a fast ride from place to place. Generally, that's true, but that's not going to be true for everyone. For some people, a sports car is scary. So that might be their dream's way of going, oh, you're going too fast, slow down a little. Conversely, a bicycle. Most people have, I've often read this, that, well, if you're riding a bicycle in your dreams, some people say, ooh, that's a bad sign. It means you're spiritually slow. Well, that's a bunch of bunk. It's just a bunch of bunk. It might be sending you a message that you're working hard to get from somewhere to the other. But like in my case, I always loved riding a bicycle. And in my dream, when I'm on a bike, I love it. So this is a totally different meaning for me than it would be for you if you really don't like riding a bike and you find it too much work.
I'm really glad you pointed that out. I know I have dreams occasionally, well, often, but there's a particular symbology that comes through, and it's very odd because I'm really animal friendly. I absolutely love animals, and I have dogs, and I love them dearly. But when I dream about dogs, it's actually a warning from spirit that there is trickery going on. And depending on where the dogs are referenced to where my body position is, you know, if I'm seeing them around my feet, then it's people that are close to me. If I'm seeing them within my home, it's a little further out. If I see it in the yard around me, that means in the, you know, that kind of thing. And then if I'm walking down a trail and encountering them, it's different too.
That's wonderful to bring that out. And that is not my experience with dogs. And that's why this conversation is so important. Because typically when I dream of a dog, I'm dreaming of something related to loyalty. Mm-hmm. Because to me, that's just kind of where they fall.
Yes, yes. And I would think that if you did have a book about dream interpretation, or if you were writing about that, that would probably for most people be an association that's there.
Could be. Some people are afraid of dogs too. So there's a lot to keep in mind. So basically you're going to write your own book. But the thing is to be open and relaxed about what it is that you've seen and remembering how you felt when you dreamt it, not waking up and going too crazy analyzing things. The feeling is the most important thing. If I in my dream come across a whole bunch of snakes, which in real life might make me go, ew, or maybe I'm afraid of them. But let's just say it is something different, a different type of feel in my dream. It means pay attention to this, watch where this goes, something like that. That's the important message.
That basing on the feeling is critical. It brought to mind a dream that I did dream about snakes. It had to do with a flying dream, and it had to do with my son who I was working on trying to get his custody at the time, and there were these huge, I mean, just mind blowingly huge serpents that were coming up onto the shore. But I felt like they were something like creators or something like that. I don't know how to describe it. It was
Could
an
be.
odd feeling. And I remember reading later that there were some philosophy about a serpent being the creator of the world. And I was like, oh, that's weird, but okay, you know?
Yeah, there are so many symbols that we can take from life. For example, in some Native American traditions, an owl is a sign of wisdom, of steadiness, and in others, it's a sign of impending death. So
Mm-hmm.
just like that, dreams really are, it's a what it means to you in that moment. And you may have a dream later that has snakes in it, and it's not going to be the same thing. But the trick is learning how to gauge, okay, what do I do with this? And it's really not that complicated. In fact, it's a lot less complicated than having to analyze everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the good news.
Well, if somebody was wanting to begin interpreting either their own dream, obviously using their feelings, but if they wanted to, if are there tools that they could use, or what what would you recommend to someone who was thinking about interpreting?
I would mostly recommend that they keep something to write with by their bed. And if they wake up and they've had a dream, when they wake up, to write down briefly what the dream was about, but most importantly, how they felt about those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get into some specifics in a little bit here about how to ask yourself the questions that get to the meat of what does this mean to me. I have often heard that, take it and write it down, and many people do. I tried it, it didn't work for me. I
Mm-hmm.
still offer that to others, though, because it really works for a lot of people. For me, what I have asked of Spirit is allow me to wake up and sit with it for a moment. And then when I wake up for good, bring back what I need to remember and
Yes.
deal with it then. And that's my personal way. And you have to do what works for you. Deep down, the most important thing is deep down, you really know what your dream means, or you would not be having it.
Right. What if you have a dream and you know it's significant, but you can only remember a part of it? I mean, like while you're in it, obviously you're experiencing the whole thing, but as you come to consciousness, some of it drops away.
And that's all right, because if you need to remember more, it'll come back to you either that way or in another way. Because, see, the whole thing is the Spirit is actually kind. And the entire reason that we dream in symbols and they don't just come out and say it
Mm-hmm.
is that our mind is not necessarily ready to process all this information yet. And so Spirit is being kind to us and lets us sort of internally dictate, when do I open to this part? When does this part become clear to me? But that's why writing it down might be helpful, because you might gain clarity in a day or two over something that didn't make sense immediately when you woke up. So again, it is more about how you feel, not about the symbols, but the symbols are important. And even if your dream doesn't seem to make sense, it made sense to your soul. So don't panic over it being different or coded or a puzzle or something like that. Learn to try to enjoy that. There's going to be plays on words. There's going to be all kinds of things that happen. Let me talk about some typical dream situations that all of us have.
Yeah, I wanted. Can I get you to clarify one thing, or
Sure.
maybe expound on one thing? It seemed to kind of resonate with you when I said I noticed that they were either right beside me or in my house or outside the yard or whether it was.
Yes.
What other locational things or
Yes, we
things?
can talk about locations. It's not just the what the things are, but it is where are they located in your dream, both compared to you, or is it in a house? Is it outdoors, in a vehicle, on water? There are always symbols that are helping us better interpret what Spirit is trying to say. So, for example, I really liked what you said, because it actually made me think about it in a slightly different way than I would have put it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got really pretty excited when you said that, because I thought, it was really wonderful.
Well, right back at you. So go ahead.
Okay, so location it's a certain type of scene. Different than things or people, a location is a setting for something. So let me do a real overgeneralized thing. Again, remembering that this is personal to you, but typically you think metaphysically in a really simple way. For example, a house. A house is where you live, including your mind.
Yeah.
So if you dream of a house or you dream of something in a house, it's talking about where you live. It's so simple, you almost want to laugh.
No, I think it is something to pay attention to, though.
If you're in the upstairs or the attic of your house, you want to think of that's the higher level. That's like the higher self. It might be your spiritual side or maybe your intellect or the two combined. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you are in the basement, that might be a lower nature, a darker place, perhaps a place you don't visit often. And then you just go very general. The kitchen is the place where stuff is cooking up. So it might be that is where you're generating things to feed your soul. Mm. Or it might be where your creativity is being cooked up. The dining room is where you're fed or where you eat. And the question would be, did this food get delivered to me? Did I feed it to myself? You know, there's a lot of things, but the location sets the stage. And the bedroom, when you think about the bedroom, we have 2 or 3 ideas. One is a place where you rest, mm-hmm. and the other is a place of intimacy. Mm-hmm. And despite the fact somebody else might go, well, that's where I have a milkshake and watch Netflix. You know, you might need to take that into account if you have that in your dream. But generally speaking, your mind will give you the location based on something that's going to make sense to you.
Yeah.
So think really generically. Windows. What do you do with windows? You look through them. So if there's a window in your dream, there's something about either light coming in or out or looking through something. Doors, we say it all the time. One door closes, another door opens. It's an entryway. It takes you in and out of new places, or it leaves old things behind. Oh, and chances are really good. It just means exactly what you think it means when you give it half a second's thought. So that's a lot about location. And there's some, you talked about what I would call, I guess, proximity to yourself. Mm-hmm. You talked about something being by your feet versus by your head. Or it may be distance related. It might be someone or something right next to you. It might be in the next room. All those are things to pay attention to.
When you were talking about windows and doors, I thought about this recurrent dream that I used to have. And it was like I would fly down this cobblestone street. Mm. And there were gas lights that were there, like the old. And there was like a door, and there were people coming in. You could see the light pouring out of the door. You could see there were benches and people sitting there. And I would remember going in and I would remember coming out, but I wouldn't remember anything about what I learned or experienced while I was in there.
So, and we all have things like that, you know, spirit really is kind. It's trying to teach us how to have a better and more meaningful life. And so it sends us these cues of, okay, let's tweak this over here and your life will be better, or perhaps there's another route, or mm-hmm. maybe you didn't quite get this time. Now, my recurring dream, you will love this. I'm a pianist, and I had piano lessons my whole life as a child. And I majored in piano, started as a piano major in college. And my recurring dream is that, oh, I have forgotten my piano lesson. Or I have forgotten my books, or, oh my gosh, I haven't paid my teacher. I owe her all this money.
Oh.
so, and a lot of people have the equivalent type of dream with regard to going to school.
Yes, I have the tests, and I forgot where my class is. Yes. I don't know what I'm supposed to show up at college, and exactly. I can't remember, and I don't know where the registrar is to try to find my schedule, or I come late, or I've missed a test, or.
Well, and these are things that just say there's some anxiety happening inside of me.
Yeah,
It might be that simple, or it might be a little more specific. But for example, a school or class is a sign of learning, and it's either something in process now, or maybe some learning is needed, or perhaps we have sort of let go or forgotten of something we've already learned and we need to reach back and remember it to live more fully. So this is how spirit gives our dreams a personal slant, and it's meant to give us enough information to go on and to get life to be better for us. And so school is one of those. I don't know of anybody who doesn't have school dreams, and many of us have been out of college or high school for many, many, many years, but we're always learning, so there's always going to be that school thing. Something else in our dreams, there's always people in our dreams, and we often get really stuck on the who was in our dream and why did I dream about this person, and I don't want to dream about this person, or why did this exchange happen? Generally speaking, and this is a little odd, but generally speaking, every person in your dream is actually you, an aspect of you.
I've heard that. That.
So if say your mom was a warrior and you dream of your mom, your dream might be telling you that maybe you're getting a little too worried. Or you might be dreaming of a certain person who did something very kind for you, and your mind is reminding you of that, to recall that and recall your worth, or to remind you to be kind to someone or something, but it is showing an aspect of yourself. So I also offer that because we have those.
Cathy, I'm so sorry. We're going to have to take a break at the bottom of the hour here, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. If you want to find Cathy Fisher, you can reach her by email at Cathy Fisher for you. That's CathyFisher for you, one letter, at gmail.com. We'll be back on the other side of the hour. Welcome back. Today we have been talking with Cathy Fisher about dream interpretation and what is in a dream. If you tuned in late and would like to catch up on the first half of the show sometime in the near future, or you'd like to listen to any previous episode, they are all on YouTube. If you are interested in contacting me, you can reach me at my website at mediumtracylockwood.com. Cathy, we're tickled to have you with us today, and we were in the midst of talking about some common dream scenes and different themes of dreams. We were talking about people in our dream, and you were saying that, one way to look at it would be to see people as aspects of ourself. And I was provoked the question in my mind, well, would that depend on the type of dream that we're having? Because sometimes we're having an encounter with our totem. We might be having a past life memory. We might be actually encountering our relatives on the other side, because that's something our left brain doesn't handle too well on a day-to-day basis for many people. What do you think about that?
I think that's very true, which again gets us back to that. It's how it made you feel at the time. Are you watching a film of your life progressing, or is this some other type of message?
Yes.
And the person that can determine that is the dreamer.
And
so yes, if you have a loved one who has passed on and you're dreaming about them, I think almost all the time that truly is the loved one coming to you.
Yes.
And to just take and understand that. Even if the message is a little strange, a little garbled, or not typical, your mind might be mixing other things in, but generally speaking, that person is letting you know that they are still in your world, that they are still protecting you, etc. Now, let me also give the caveat of that. Let's just say you dream of someone that's passed on and it's not someone you want around you and they freak you out or whatever. It may just be your mind also being anxious, and that's its way of presenting that to you. Remember that anxiousness that this person made you feel? You're experiencing that now in some other ways. So again, it's all sort of a balance of things. It's tricky.
You're bringing to mind a memory of a dream that I had. My first husband and I had 3 children together. And we have a very acrimonious relationship that's healed a lot over time, but we're still not friendly. But right after or during the midst of what was a 10-year custody battle, I had a dream that I had seen him in the etheric realm. I didn't think of it as the etheric realm, I just remembered seeing him. And I just loved him so much in that dream, which was not at all related to even a moment of time. And this was back, I married him in 1981. I wanted to just peel my skin off my body when I got finished with the dream of being loving with him, because, and it wasn't sexual, it was just like
Right.
love. And it wasn't until really very recently, maybe in the last 5 or 6 years, that I realized that we're in the same soul group and we had made an agreement to come together to put different pressures into each other's lives. I'm sure he has a list as
Sounds like
well.
it's quite successful.
But it was sort of like a soul recognition at a higher soul level where I guess I was in a way thanking him for playing the role of the ex-husband for me, because it served a purpose in my life and my development.
Exactly. And see, that's where that personal understanding of your need and your message is the important thing. So being able to look at that, that was, you processed your feeling about that, and that can be exactly what that is.
Unfortunately, it wasn't residual. It didn't I
No,
didn't calm down and feel that I could be loving for several years after that in the physical.
and some relationships are not reconcilable on this plane, and that just needs to be sometimes. Another aspect, because not all the time when somebody comes to you is it, like I said, is it necessarily them. For example, I may have had a relative who had, like I brought up the mom situation,
Yeah.
where your mom was a worrier and you dream of your mom. It might not be your mom coming to you and worrying over your head. That's you looking at yourself. And
Uh-huh.
one of those times I really want to bring out, because we all have these dreams and we get really weirded out by them, are dreams where sex occurs.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're not just dreaming about a love situation. And I think everybody in their sleep has had a sexual relationship with somebody with whom is extremely inappropriate, but that's really not what that dream is about.
What do you
It's like,
think some of
no,
the possibilities could be with that?
well, it's very simple. Sex, if you think about it, is about being intimate, it's about an exchange. It can be about integrating new information or new experiences, or becoming intimate with, let's just say there was a person in your world, and let's call him Bob just for fun. And Bob was very adventurous and very fun. And let's just say in your dream, you end up having sex with Bob. What might be happening is you are having an exchange with your adventurous side. And your dream is coming to you and saying, be a little more like Bob. So we shouldn't freak out when we have dreams where strange things happen, like, oh my gosh, I had sex with my brother.
I had sex with Bob.
Yes. Or a relative, and you just go, oh my gosh, and you freak out. Well, don't, because it's not literal. It's not.
No, and that makes me just so curious, like in a past life, did we have a relationship with Bob? And then what about the flip side when the dream is sexual and it's not a positive thing where it's
Right.
violent and unwanted?
Yeah, you can have dreams with past life scenarios in it, but I think usually spirit is bringing to mind what you need now for your life now as a general.
Sure.
Unless there's a past lesson you need to bring in to it to sort of weave into your current life.
Yeah, a lot
So,
of people think of past lives, maybe the way they passed or the tragedy of it or the AKA karma that we carry, which I don't even believe in. That's like believing in original sin. It's just not helpful for people's progression. But often there are strengths that we carried in a past life that can help us. Something else hit me earlier with this thought of, an unwanted contact. I know I've had several clients, and you may have as well, that have had like spiritual encounters that were like darker or negative entities, I would advise them to build up their psychic protection if that's the type of thing that's becoming a little bit more real than a dream, where it's
Yes.
crossing you too. That's what you would
Yes.
do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
What are some other common dream scenarios that you've identified?
Well, there are a lot of them that are common to many people. Being chased is one of them.
Oh yeah.
A lot of us get chased, and that can produce anything from a little bit of a rush to extremely high anxiety. And typically speaking, this is not a fear of actually being chased, but maybe we're running from something.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe we do feel like we're being chased in some aspect of life.
Mm-hmm.
But it helps us to understand that either there's something we need to move away from, or maybe there's something we need to turn around and address in our waking lives.
Yes.
Something that needs our attention. And again, it's how does it make you feel? Now, let me give you an exception to that.
Okay.
Because I have some chase dreams that I thoroughly enjoy. It's like I'm a child playing tag, and I'm being chased, and it's this great game for me. And that's something altogether different than needing to face something.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything because I feel like I talked too much so far, but yeah, I have had dreams and I feel like I'm evading pursuers and I always seem to evade them,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the scenarios are kind of interesting.
Well, they might be something to pay attention to, and maybe someday when we're not on the radio, we can have that chat. But my
Sounds
guess
good.
is you know what those things are already.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool.
We often dream of water as well.
Yes.
That's often about our emotions or maybe our subconscious minds and the quality of the water and how the water is and how we interact with it. Those are all important. Like, is the water really cloudy and murky and muddy, or is it clear? Is it running water? Does it just sit there? Is it
Mm-hmm.
stagnant? Is it a flowing creek? I mean, what is it? So you have to think about that.
The
And
quality, paying attention to the
yes,
quality of what,
well,
yeah, yeah.
and what that quality means to you in the moment. For example, if you feel like you're drowning in white water, that's one experience. Whereas if you feel like you're rafting in white water and having a great time, that's a totally different experience with the same type of water.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
again, kind of balancing, okay, how did this make me feel? What's my actual experience with this?
Yeah.
There are lots of other things that sometimes happen. There's a sleep paralysis that happens.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
What
to
about
a
that?
lesser degree, well, to begin with, this may sound a little odd, and I don't mean to make light of that, but our body experience is a minor form of paralysis when we sleep anyway.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we'd act out our dreams when we're dreaming them. And
Right.
instead, we
True.
largely just lie there. Now, there are a few people that have sleepwalk situations and whatever, but we're not generally like that puppy that we joke about. Oh, they're chasing rabbits. Look, and their limbs just going crazy while they sleep. So there is a mechanism in our bodies that allows us to experience dreams without acting them out. So
Yeah.
first of all, don't panic if you feel paralyzed in a dream, and that is a real common scenario. And it could just be that is spirit telling you that you feel paralyzed, or to tell you in your waking moments you feel like there's nothing you can do about something and it's time to regroup and do something different so that you don't feel helpless and paralyzed.
Oh.
Another common theme
Mm-hmm.
is death or dying. It might be us or someone else in our dream, and that does not necessarily mean, oh, this person is going to die, or
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm about to die. Again, how did it make you feel? Did it make you upset? Did you just observe it? Something in between. But often a death scene is an indication of a change of some sort, not a literal death. So,
Good.
there might be a really rare case of a prophetic dream saying to you something is going to happen. Some of us do have those. But generally speaking, our dreams are still just symbols. If you have a dream about a literal death, maybe someone in your world has
Oh,
died.
I'm sure that some of our listeners have, prophetically speaking. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. And the only thing I can tell you about prophetic dreams, I believe that they can come most any time of the night. And I don't have anything to say as to how you tell, except that those of us that tend toward those seem to know they're prophetic.
Yeah, there's just a gut knowing, isn't there? Just
There is, they look different to me.
and it doesn't always have to be negative things
No.
too. They can always be, they can, a lot of times you hear people like, oh, I wish I didn't know, but there, sometimes it's a great advantage to know, or it can help you
It is.
prepare
It
for
is.
that. Yes.
And I have had that happen as a preparation. And to me, I don't know how to describe it, but the visuals of my dream are different in a prophetic dream. I would
Mm-hmm.
almost call it's not more cloudy, but it just looks different to me. But
Mm-hmm.
that's how it presents to me. And some people may dream in more vivid color. Some people may not dream in color at all. But when the nature of how you dream is different, that's something to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing you brought up earlier, and that's flying. That's not,
Uh-huh.
but now you can have different experiences with flying too. It's about how successful and freeing it feels in part. It might be
Yes.
about how much control you feel like you have in life. If you're flying high and it feels great and you're seeing things down there either you do or don't understand, but it's just a good feeling, that's one thing. And it might be showing you that you are overcoming many things or have overcome many things, and there's a freedom. It's a lot different if you're trying to take off and you're running and you can't get off the ground,
Yes. Yes. I've had
stuck in a
both those
tree.
experiences. Yes.
That's just, the usual frustration that you might be having. And if you think about the pun, hey, have you ever not been able to get something off the ground?
Yeah.
I mean, just think about the pun that's I'm flying high, or I can't get off the ground, or well, there I
Yeah,
was
very
just flying high. It was
interesting.
great. Now I'm all tangled up.
We must have some subliminal knowledge at least of that.
Yes. And that's how spirit can be kind to us. Spirit can take the subliminal messages in our mind and the word puns that we use, and they really it's just very, very fun when you think about it. So it's don't get uptight about these dreams. Really relax and have fun and smile and laugh about it a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was thinking I had a dream where I was chased by a lion and fell off a cliff, and every time I had that dream as a child, I would literally have fallen out of bed. It was so weird. And then as I got older, I didn't actually fall out of bed.
Wow.
But yeah.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
I've wondered, was that past life? Was that scenario? It was just the most rude feeling, like you'd be just perfectly fine sleeping and then just there's the lion and there's the cliff.
We talked about falling. Sometimes that's about being out of control, but not all falling dreams are negative. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if you're having a slow, peaceful fall and you feel like you're kind of flying, and that might be about you're very peaceful about letting go of something.
Mm,
So, but
yeah.
sometimes those falls are these quick, kind of scary, jolty falls, and it jolts us away. And that's just a sign that we're feeling out of control somewhere. Another one is being naked. We can be naked in the darndest places in our dreams. You show up at school, you show up at work or church, or the family gathering, and all of a sudden you're naked. Well, if you think about what that is likely to mean, it's pretty much exactly what you think. Most likely it's about vulnerability. And you might be feeling emotionally vulnerable, psychically or psychologically vulnerable, because you're naked, as we
Mm-hmm.
say here in the South. It's naked. You're feeling
Naked.
you're feeling exposed. And so your dream is just helping to understand that. And maybe you're partially exposed, or maybe you feel completely exposed. And it's not always a bad thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's saying, you're giving a little too much of yourself away, clothe yourself a little bit. But it might also be saying, hey, you're in a beautiful open spot where you're being completely honest, and there you are naked in all your glory. So again, how does
Nice.
naked make you feel? In your dream, of course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another common themes, and what's funnier, these are all life themes too when we're awake, is a baby or a pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Are you expecting something? Is something about to be born from you? Are you starting a new venture, a new project? Did you have an idea and maybe you're pregnant with that? Maybe you feel like you have a new lease on life, or maybe it's saying to you, You need to birth something. You need to try something new and do something different and birth something.
Create something.
And then there's food. We all want to be fed, and we think about being spiritually fed, emotionally fed, as well as, well, pizza and stuff. And that's often directly related to our mind or our emotions. And think in terms of idioms like, oh, well, that's food for thought. Or we might be hungry for something. Maybe we haven't spent enough time just sitting with spirit and being, just listening to what the universe is telling us. And maybe food is saying, you're hungry and you need to feed yourself.
Oh, that is a wonderful way to bring our show to a close, Cathy. Cathy Fisher, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. I look forward to talking with you again in the future and maybe having you back to talk about another topic. You're most welcome. And for those of you that listened in, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week for a view of life from a medium's perspective. And remember, it's never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing. See you next week.
For 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly.